Robert Kiyosaki, since the first book that he wrote, Rich Dad Poor Dad, has really been crapping on education and saying that the old generation, the old way of thinking was to get a safe, secure job, to, buy a house, to, get a picket fence and a spouse and have two kids and pay into a pension plan and, essentially repeat that for the next 25 years until you retire. And he says that way of thinking is wrong. And so he's disillusioned in many cases a nation of people. And there have been many people who have followed him, even people like Elon Musk, who have said education is a waste of time. Bill Gates, at some level, has said a formal education, is a waste of time. And so the messaging now with people like Kiyosaki and others seems to be, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just become an autodidact and go to a library and read everything that you need to learn on quantum mechanics and go out and apply for a job with, NASA or Boeing or one of these other companies. And, they'll undoubtedly hire you, with your vast, storehouse of library materials and your, trusty Kindle. Surely you know everything there is to know that a person with a master's degree in engineering must know. And those messages, among several other messages, has created a very alarming trend in today's society. It's created this ridiculous idea that has left the youth of today tremendously paralyzed and disenfranchised as to what to do with their life. And so the reason why I say that Kiyosaki is wrong, and it's interesting how he actually went to school and got an accounting degree, and then realized that education was a waste of time. Elon Musk had a master's degree and was on his way to get a PhD when he said that education was a waste of time. Bill Gates was admitted to and an attendee of Harvard when he dropped out to pursue Microsoft and said that education was a waste of time. Zuckerberg did the same thing at Harvard when he started Facebook. So there's a very interesting trend that people don't seem to catch on to, in that a lot of these people are speaking of this in retrospect. And they're speaking from it in an elevated place. Kiyosaki was already retired when he wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So he'd already gone through this process of poverty, wealth generation, creating money, creating businesses, creating income. But he did it from a place as an educated man. He did it as an accountant with a degree in accounting. Whether he practiced as an accountant is irrelevant. He learned sales skills and all those other things. But at the end of the day, an education, formal or otherwise, is never a bad idea. And so what these messages seem to bring to the youth today is this idea that you don't have to have any sort of formal skill set. And there's a lot of people out there that are not entrepreneurial. Most people are not entrepreneurial. And so they go out there and they don't know what to do, and they don't know where to start, and they don't know how to go from one field, one practice, one idea, one job to another. And so they simply disengage. And if you think that's not true, then look at the rates of depression and suicide of suicide or attempted suicides among the youth today in North America. It is the highest that our nation has ever seen. That's not an accident. It's designed. It's become designed that way because of the messages that we're sending. What we're sending kids is this idea that doesn't really matter whether you go to school or not. Doesn't really matter whether you get good grades or not. Doesn't really matter whether you're a top athlete or not. Doesn't matter whether you put all of your effort into it or very little effort into it. We're still going to give you a passing grade. And kids today have absolutely no idea about how they can identify, how to self-identify. And I believe that education can give you that mirror at some level. At the very least, it can teach you what you don't want to do. You may go to school for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and then say, you know what, I don't really like this. I think I'm going to be a business owner. I think I'm going to invent a widget. Or I think I'm going to be, Steve Ballmer and be the next head of Microsoft. Steve Ballmer, who was an employee, became a billionaire, by the way. So it is possible to be an employee and be wealthy. You just have to provide more value to a company than you've currently, done in your job. But we're sending a terrible message to our youth today, and they're completely lost. And so that's why I suggest that people like Kiyosaki, that people, that are sending these messages to kids today, they're just wrong. And an education is a great thing. You will never be sorry. I'm not saying go to a Ivy League school. I think that's a waste of money. I think a Harvard education is equal to a local community college education, and nobody will convince me otherwise. And the research shows the only difference between Harvard versus the local one is the connections you make while you're in school. So join certain community, where you might interact with those people, and you've got the same network that's equally as valuable as a $200,000 debt from Harvard University. So education is not the problem, but we have to do a better job of helping our youth to give them messages that give them hope rather than despair. Have a great day.